Welcome everyone to the Bent by Knowledge podcast, where we will dig into what current research and the Bible actually have to say about exercise and good nutrition. All right, y'all, welcome back. Today we have episode 3 of a 3-part series with Dr. Mike Fedewa and Dr. Mike Esco. And the first 2 series we talked about a whole lot of things, and this episode we're going to be talking about one of my favorite topics because I feel like we're plagued with issues in this topic, which is how to be a better professional. And when I say professional, I mean professional in the practical applied world, like fitness professionals, dietitians, nutrition professionals, but also in the research world, which is where you guys come in, and you guys also have the practical experience too. But before we go any further, I would love for you to just reintroduce yourself slightly and tell us how you are the person to talk about this, like what experience makes you the person to talk about being a better professional.
Go ahead, Esco. You're the most professional out of the two of us.
Oh man, you beat me to it. But so yeah, I mean, it's the whole started in this academic career from working as a practitioner. I spent many years as a personal trainer and really loved it so much that I wanted to continue my learning and continue gaining knowledge as a through academics, and eventually found myself pursuing a PhD and falling in love with research and teaching. So still keep a client base on the side as I'm doing, teaching and research, and, just really love it because, the way I look at it is the more people that I work with, the better I am in the lab and the better I am in teaching, right? Because it keeps it keeps everything in mind of the end user, right? Of working with people and through, whoever it may be to increase health and, improve health and fitness. That's what we're all for it, right? So I really enjoy kind of serving both roles, if you will, but I just kind of view it all as one.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm Mike Fedew. I'm also a professor here at Alabama. Teaching and research is kind of my day job, but it wasn't at all what I planned to do when I started out. I thought that I was going to do personal training and that was going to be my world and, going to make my career that way. So I do have experience in personal training and group fitness. I've got a little bit of experience too. One of my graduate assistant positions that I had was over fitness and wellness programming at Central Michigan University. So I've got a little bit of that aspect too. A little bit of cardiac rehab and stress testing experience. I've served in so many different roles and in different positions over the past few decades that it all kind of led here. So, I do now have a PhD in exercise physiology and I teach and do research and now have started, a company with Dr. Esco and now we're kind of branching out into the mainstream in addition to the academic world. So we've kind of seen this fitness world, I guess, from a lot of different angles. So we're really excited to be here.
Yeah, and I love that idea. I love talking to professionals like you because there is such a synergy when you're involved in both of those worlds, where it's the research world and then the practical, let's call it the fitness world, because it makes you a better researcher if you're in the fitness world, because then you understand things better, like proper programming, and you just understand how things feel. So when you're doing a research study, you can look at those participants and sort of empathize with them. On the other hand, when you're a fitness professional and you have a research background, you have founded knowledge and experience of what research actually says to be able to help your clients a little bit better. So I love talking to professionals like you two because it seems like you cover all the bases and it makes a better professional, I think, in my opinion. But that's probably because I'm the same way.
We love talking to you too. So, and we completely agree, right? I mean, that's what led us here. Dr. Fedew and I, we started as practitioners, and that's what brought us here, for the love of the field, right? And we're really excited to do this, and we're working with subjects. You're right. I mean, it keeps it in mind is that we don't want to get lost in the lab.
Yeah, love it. Love it. Well, I would love to start with the professionals in practice. So fitness and nutrition professionals
Mhm.
and just in general scope, and then we'll boil it down. What are some of the top areas that you guys see that these people need improvement, whether it's fitness instructors or nutritionists, things like that?
You know, I think jokingly when we looked at the questions for this episode, we thought this one was the one that we were going to get hung up on the most, to start out first and be like, what is everyone else doing wrong, right? So you guys can come in here and be like, hey, what's the biggest problem that you guys are seeing? And you know, I don't necessarily think it's something that they're doing wrong, or something that, you know, practitioners, group fitness instructors, or trainers are doing wrong. I think that, you know, I think three of the areas that I think we can all probably improve on, and that's Esco and I too. Um, I think one of them that I've noticed, and Esco, you can jump in here and kind of back me up. I think that we're all so quick to jump on hot trends and hot topics and quick fixes. Like, I think that with the launch of the app, we have kind of branched out and started making a presence on social media. So we started connecting with a lot of professionals there, and it's amazing to watch how quickly trends pop up. Like, you can almost see it coming, like a wave on the horizon, right? So you just kind of see this wave coming, and somebody will post about a topic, and then everyone else kind of immediately pops up, and makes a similar post, and makes kind of a similar like infogram or something like that. And it's I think clients are looking for quick fixes. I think that practitioners a lot of times then are almost forced to give their take on quick fixes, or give kind of the quickest fix that they can think of. And so a lot of times the solutions that we are talking about and are offering to the people, the clients and patients that we're working with, are not always founded in the best science. And so I think we sometimes are just as quick to jump on hot trends as the consumers are, and we're trained in this area, right? We have degrees, we have certifications in this area, but sometimes we fall victim to it just like everybody else does.
Yeah, I completely agree. And that's I think that one of it's, you have to really, you never stop learning, right? So the thing about this industry is that all that's required to really get involved in it is a weekend certificate. I mean, and that's true. But I'm in both of us are in the profession of educating, students, and our hope is that they receive a bachelor's degree in exercise science, and and an ideal world, I guess, in my mind, that anyone prescribing an exercise program to an individual would have a degree. But that's not the world that we live in. But I'm not so sure that we really have to live in that world, because I've known some amazing personal trainers that never had a degree. And that really speaks to the great thing about our profession, is that we can learn on ourselves, right? I mean, and so my main tip or point that I would tell professionals in this area is to make sure that you are walking the walk, and that's hard to do when you have 15 clients that you have to train throughout a day, and you're overwhelmed with all that, and is little time spent on working out yourself and making sure that you're staying fit and healthy or whatnot. But at the end of the day, you have to. And with that said, it's, this is a field that we can actually use ourselves as guinea pigs. We can learn on ourselves, right? And that's important. So, never stop learning. It doesn't have to really be in a classroom. It's kind of crazy for a professor to say, but it's true. There's so much knowledge that we can obtain just from reading and staying away and using our common knowledge to be able to discern the difference between the fallacies of mainstream and actually works. So fads come and go, trends come and go, right? But your knowledge is really what's most important.
Yeah, and I'll definitely agree with that. And I picked up on so many things that you said because I love the idea that, I mean, we do have a huge range of professional in this field. So we do have the person, like you said, that gets a weekend certificate. And then we have a person like us that has their PhD and is also still doing fitness stuff. And we have this range, and it's funny. It's a hard conversation to have too, because I do have sort of a bone to pick with the people that do just get the weekend certification if they don't do their due diligence and continuing education and trying to get themselves better. Like, I have seen coaches that do that and then they're just stagnant, and then they're giving faulty recommendations and advice to their clients. And that's the only bone I have to pick with that. But I just got on this new social media platform called Clubhouse, if you've heard of that. Yeah, it's pretty cool. I would definitely recommend looking into it.
Okay.
But there are tons of rooms, which I appreciate too, that are their conversation revolves around how do we improve this field that's being diluted by people coming in that don't have proper certifications or proper degrees or things like that. And I think, Fedewa, you made a point in the questions where it was like, we should be excited that we stick out as sort of like a small fish in a huge pond, but like a glittering fish in a huge pond, and that we have all these credentials, we're sticking out compared to the crowd. And so it's an interesting thing, that range that we have where yeah, you have the weekend certificate person, and then you have the professional. Because I mean, on the other hand too, I also think that other people with degrees are sometimes less credible than people that have a weekend certification. For instance, people like Dr. Oz and all those people with advanced degrees that I don't know, should I cut that out? But you have to, as a consumer, do your due diligence to make sure that you're scrutinizing what they're saying, figuring out whether it's proper or not. And then as a producer, like a professional, we need to make sure that we're continuing our education, like you said. So that was my long-winded approach to saying that I agree with what you said.
That was a great long-winded approach. And, I think it really comes down to this. I think everyone can probably think back to college and think back to a professor that they had who was just mailing it in, right? Like, they were just showing up so they don't get in trouble, and like class was awful, and like you could tell they didn't care. There's PhDs like that. There's professors like that. There's personal trainers like that. So I don't ever want to come out and be like, hey, no, seriously, check the PhD. Like, I got credentials behind the name. You should believe whatever I tell you, because that's not true too. There's a lot of PhDs that I wouldn't, I don't necessarily value their opinion very much at all, right? And the same thing, like, just because you have a bachelor's degree and you're, a group fitness instructor or a personal trainer does not mean that you're a great personal trainer or group fitness instructor. There's some trainers that I've worked with that do not have a degree in the field, and they're some of the best trainers that I've seen, right? The way that they can interact and the way that they, kind of identify with their clients is top notch. So I really do feel like, like us as professionals, as faculty, like, I want to surround myself with other faculty that are doing research, that have the energy, that make me want to be better, right? Same thing, like, as a trainer, you should want to be around other trainers that have that same energy and the same drive to want to move the field forward. And I feel like that should be all of the encouragement that you need, right? So if the field is getting diluted and you're worried about people coming in and, they have a certification, but they're just, again, their heart's not in it, and they're not worried about continuing their education or their training, that's fine. Eventually their clients will figure it out and they'll kind of fall to the wayside. And, like, you just want to keep surrounding yourself by people who are motivated and people who are smarter and better than you. I always want to be the dumbest person in the room, right? I mean, that's, and in complete honesty, I want to be on a research team where everyone is more qualified than me and has better skills than me. And as a trainer, like, I would want to surround myself with other trainers who are better at training than me so I could learn something from them. And I think that's how the field moves forward.
Well, you hang out with me, so you're not the dumbest person in the room, dude. Sorry to tell you.
Well, collectively, we can just sit in the back then.
Yeah. Queen Bee will take the smartest person in the room.
Queen Bee. Exactly. I mean, the great trainers that don't have a degree, that are really proficient at training, and there's a bunch of them, and I know a lot of them, would be even better trainers if they had a degree. I would love it if they would convert them, you know, go through it to get a degree and become a certified exercise physiologist. Great. And I know a lot of students who have a degree and they pass the certifications and become a certified exercise physiologist, and they're not a great trainer because they haven't had the experience to work with actual people. You know, I mean, I had my class that we just started was exercise prescription. And the first thing that I told them all, get a certification in personal training, because right off the bat, you can learn to work with people. And that's what this is about.
Yeah, and I'll agree with you there. I like what you said about experience too, because I think that sometimes we do go into it, whether we're getting a degree or a certification, and then we forget about actually getting the experience to keep developing. And like, I know my path, I was all over the place. So my undergrad degree required us to sit for an exam. So I sat for the ACSM. Back then it wasn't
Health and
the
fitness specialist.
CPC. Yeah, it was the certified exercise physiologist, but passed
health
it.
and fitness specialist, health and
Yes,
fitness
that's what it
instructor.
was.
Then,
HFS. Yeah.
Yeah, HFS. Yeah.
Yep.
Exactly.
And
So,
so I sat for that, and then I started at where everybody should start, which is the YMCA.
Yo, I
teaching
started at the
group
Y
fitness.
too.
Oh yeah, $10
All
an hour.
right. Louisville, Texas. What's up?
Yeah. So I started there. We were doing, weight loss challenge. I was teaching group fitness, and then I shadowed some people that had their own business. So we were doing home exercise stuff. I worked at all kinds of sports performance places. I worked in group fitness settings. I worked in women's gyms, all kinds of stuff. And so I had my hand in every single pot, first because I loved it, but also because I needed to find my niche. And so I think what I would recommend for anybody that's getting into this fitness field is to not necessarily to say yes to everything, but try your best to try everything, because not only are you going to get exposed to it all, but you're going to see how Coach A coaches, Coach B coaches, Coach C coaches, and you're going to pick out what you want to develop your fitness arsenal. And that's how you become a really good coach.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. So do you have any words of the wise for experience as a professional? To gain experience, I should say.
Yeah, I think honestly, you can get so much experience just by volunteering. I mean, I think of all the positions in coaches that I volunteered just to shadow, to pick up extra hours. I mean, if what you're really looking for is exposure, I mean, everybody is more than willing to take free help, right? So like if you're willing to show up early and stay late and shadow clients and just soak up as much information as you can, like there are trainers and coaches and group fitness instructors and clubs and gyms that will be more than happy to take you for an unpaid internship. Get out of here, man. Who wouldn't want that? But I think, the experience is so valuable. I think, one of the things that I learned really quickly with being in the fitness industry is that it's okay to try a ton of stuff out. And it's okay, in some sense to go and put yourself out there and almost say yes to everything. Like, hey, you want to come and shadow over here? Yes, I do. Right. I don't of course I'll pick up whatever you give me. So yeah, absolutely. And then, you can really quickly figure out whether you like it or not. And if you don't like it, then you just leave and you have just made a decision. You say, you know what, I really want to be in health and fitness, but I just learned that it is not in a gym like this, right? In a setting like this, working with clients like this, this is not where I kind of want to make my professional home. And I think that's just as valuable sometimes as deciding where you do want to be, is figuring out which path that you don't want to go down.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Great advice for sure. Get the experience and then go from there. You also said something too, Fedewa, before, and I want to sort of circle back to it. You were talking about how clients sometimes will have to sort of like crawl back to you, where, okay, we're going back to the conversation where I was talking about how you're a professional in a sea of people that aren't as what you would say professional as you. And so the way that I was thinking in my head, which is all over the place, squirrel, but is that in some of these chat rooms that I go into with Clubhouse, it seems like we're spending a whole lot of energy complaining about how do we get this other person to stop giving faulty advice, when we aren't focusing on developing ourselves. And we're not focusing on taking a proactive approach. So first, I really think, and I take this as an example because it's from my experience, but I really think that it's not so much us trying to force other people to stop doing what they're doing in terms of professionals, but it's more we just have to sit back, do our thing, and then wait for somebody. Like in my case, we get a lot of people coming to Orange Theory from CrossFit for whatever reason. They get injured in CrossFit, and I'm definitely not saying anything bad about CrossFit. I love the idea of CrossFit, but I know that some boxes don't do the right things in terms of safety and stuff. So there are people that get injured, and then we have to have those people come crawling back to us. So it's not it becomes a reflection of those coaches and their professional experience or lack thereof. And so we sort of have to just wait for people to come to us and just keep developing our own skill set while we do that.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's true. I think, maybe it's my personality. Maybe I'm just not overly salesy. I don't feel comfortable in that role. Overstating qualifications and credentials and being the next hottest thing on the block. I think if you try to oversell the benefits of working with you as a personal trainer or a group fitness instructor, eventually people will figure it out. Right. I mean, I think that is why, a lot of people are frustrated with not achieving the goals that they, or the results, I guess, that they expected when they start a program, is maybe they were promised something that was unrealistic and they didn't get it. Right. Because the goal, there was no trainer in the world that could have ever gotten them as far as they wanted to go as quickly as they were promised. And so, I think what we have to do as trainers, is be confident in what you're doing, not try to oversell, and be comfortable in the science and the training that you have, and understanding that eventually it's like false promises. Eventually, like, people will be disappointed enough. They will come back. Like they will go to the people and the trainers that they trust, who haven't lied to them before, right? Who just give it to them straight, who give like straight facts and honest opinions, and who are actually out here trying to help and kind of guide them on their fitness journey, rather than trying to, make their millions this way. And I think, personally, I think it's personality maybe that kind of gives me that perspective. Maybe it's just my inherent faith that people will do the right thing. I don't know. That's just always kind of been my perspective.
Well, and your ability, your desire to serve, because that's what it's about. I mean, we're serving people when we're actually doing this. We're working with somebody else. At the end of the day, that's what we're doing. We're serving someone else. We're trying to improve we're trying to give them something that's going to add value to their life. Mm-hmm. That's a very noble thing, right? And we need to keep that in mind. The fitness industry is such a cool industry, right? But at the end of the day, that's what we're doing. That's what I love about it. I loved what improving my fitness did for myself, and I love the fact that because of that, I'm able to pay it forward to work with other people. And now I get to teach students to actually do that, which is awesome.
Yeah, it's so great. But we're in this world too that's consumed, because of social media, is consumed with volume and numbers, which I think is why we have such a big problem. So we end up not focusing on our strengths and playing to our strengths and serving, like you said, Esco, just serving people. It's more, what other skill sets can I hoard unrightfully? And how can I increase my volume? And then we end up not being able to best serve our clients. So for instance, I see a lot of fitness professionals that call themselves like nutritionists. They call themselves holistic professionals, things of that nature. And so it creates a problem first. But I did want to ask Esco if you knew if there were any regulations, or Fedewa, if you knew if there were any regulations around maybe claiming that you're something and you're not something.
Go ahead.
Go ahead, Esco. You're the certification guy.
Well, oh, wow. Yeah. I mean, I guess you saying that I'm the certification guy actually brings up a slew of problems with our field, is that we are an unidentifiable field, right? What is an exercise physiologist? And you bring up nutritionists. First of all, they're registered dietitians, and that to be honest with you, in my opinion, and in the opinion of many others, if you're sitting in front of someone and you're prescribing a diet to that individual, you should be a registered dietitian. Now, there are nutritionists out there that are certified to provide nutrition information, and us as exercise professionals can certainly do that as well, to give them some sort of counsel, right, and encourage them to eat appropriately. But that is not within our area of expertise. So what we need to do is we need to stay within our lane, stay focused of what we are trained to do.
Let me ask you this though, because this question was brought up before. So yeah, and I totally agree with that too. Stay in your lane. Like, I wholeheartedly agree with that. But the thing is, and where the waters get a little muddied, is that, like, I remember when I sat for the NSCA CSCS exam, and there was nutrition on it, and you were expected to know nutrition.
Right.
So
yeah.
I don't know if they just want you to have a baseline knowledge to be able to sort of hold your own if you were asked questions, or
yeah, there's such a good relationship between the two, right? You can't. Both of them complement, like proper nutrition and proper physical activity and exercise. They complement each other, right? So they go hand in hand. But so does medicine.
Yeah.
So does other allied health professions, and we have to be aware of that. So yeah, of course that the CSCS asks information and challenge the knowledge of nutrition, but I learned aspects of medicine that weren't, I'm not a physician, but same way about nutrition. We have to understand how all of it kind of fits together, and we can, I counsel my clients to through understanding what their beta blocker does and ACE inhibitor or whatnot to control their blood pressure, but I don't prescribe that to them, because I'm not that professional to do that. That's for a physician to do. I counsel them as well to, understand how to eat appropriately, but I don't sit in front of them to give them a specific diet to follow.
Yeah, I think when I I interned in cardiac rehab, and then, I've taught stress testing and EKG interpretation, at a couple different schools now, and in clinical exercise phys. And I think, I had to sit for the ACLS certification, so advanced cardiac life support. And I was like, okay, yeah, I'm going to learn so much stuff about, like, if somebody goes down, stress testing, like I'm going to get the crash card out. We're going to push some meds. Right. And so I'm in there as one of the only exercise physiologists in a room full of nurses and MDs. And we all went through the same certification, and we were all quizzed over the same cardiac meds. We simulated crashes and, like, what would happen in these clinical situations if somebody goes down, and this is their rhythm, and this is what's happening. And they go, and by the way, Fedewa, you're actually not allowed to administer any of these drugs, but you do need to know all of them, and you do need to understand what's going on in this situation, right? So that if somebody is experiencing, like, this rhythm, and this is what's going on, and these are their symptoms, like, this is the medication we would administer, even though you're not licensed, so you can't actually push the meds. You do have to understand what's physiologically going on, and it's the same thing with diet, right? Like, I've always viewed diet as, like, if somebody comes into the gym and you're training them, they're looking to you for exercise and fitness advice. Fitness and nutrition go so, like, hand in hand. Like, you would never recommend for weight loss an exercise program without also recommending some sort of a dietary intervention. Like, it just wouldn't make sense, right? And so I think where the gray line becomes, a little bit kind of iffy is, I think it's always been our role to understand the fundamentals of nutrition, so that, if a client comes to you and they say, hey, I've been thinking about this supplement, like, you can understand what that supplement does. You can't recommend taking that supplement. You can say orange juice is a great source of vitamin C, right? But you can't say, you need to be drinking more orange juice, right? Or you can say chicken breast is a great source of lean protein, right? And, blah, blah, blah. You can't say, actually, you should be consuming about 1.4 grams of protein per, you know what I mean? You can't give dietary recommendations. You can be a resource to your clients. And I think, personally, I'm not a dietitian or a nutrition expert. Like, I know just enough to get myself in trouble, and I certainly don't want to get in trouble. So I want to stay in my lane and make sure that the advice that I'm giving, again, is not false advertising. Like, I want to always fall back on my strengths, and nutrition is not a strength if I'm a personal trainer. it's personal training.
I love what you said about being a resource because I mean, we're basically like a walk-in talking Google, but better than Google sometimes. And because you shouldn't give advice. So you shouldn't be telling somebody what to do if it's not in your lane, but you can tell them what you know. And that's what I try to do. I always say, well, the research says this, and it's sort of take it or leave it. You do this, do what you want with this information, then we can go from there. But if you want to talk about exercise, we can talk all about exercise.
Dude, I got sets and reps and minutes. I got that for days,
Yeah.
right? But I don't know, like nutrition's not my lane. I can't go there.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think too, in this world, before we get into research, I think too, part of the problem is that we're not making and maturing and mobilizing good professionals ourselves. So like, I don't know very many fitness professionals that have gone to a new fitness professional and said, hey, I would love to mentor you and take you under my wing. Because I do feel like we have this world where it's sort of every man for himself. It's a very selfish, sort of self-centered world for the most part. I know not everybody is that way, especially teachers and instructors, because they have to be with students and things like that. So they're natural teachers and mentors. But we do have a problem in the fitness world where it is every man for himself. So it's not like I want to help you, it's I want to help myself get better in this world. So do you have any ways for fitness professionals to be more proactive in their approach to improving this world or mentoring other fitness professionals?
I don't know if it's necessarily limited to just the fitness world. I would argue that it probably extends to the academic world too. I mean, just think like professionally in our research world, how many times somebody has landed a grant in your department and people have been irritated or jealous that person received funding for a grant that they put in. And in a sense, it's like, yo, but that should have been me, right? Like, wait a second, dude, you should be happy that makes your department look better. That makes your university look better. Like that makes it makes the whole team should shine. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And I think, in a sense, like, I don't know if it's just unique to the fitness industry, but I agree with what you're saying. If I'm a group fitness instructor or, if I do personal training or if I'm a strength coach and clients have a choice of me or them, I understand like that's a very difficult decision to make. But at the same time, wouldn't it be more beneficial if you did take a mentoring role and help train that person up so that they are a better fitness professional, so that the two of you and the whole team can better serve, so that the club, and the gym, the membership grows, the services you can offer, grow. I get very frustrated sometimes when people that I work with are not, maybe cannot pull the weight that I'm expecting them to, right? And that in a sense comes back on me. Like, how do I help you better pull the weight so that we can all move forward faster? Like, I think that becomes a mindset issue. And I think that's where the mentoring piece becomes, critically important. It's like, how can, if I'm in a pinch and I need to rely on you, how can I give you this, or how can we work on this together so that it can lessen my load so that we can all move forward faster?
Yeah, that's great.
I mean, Esco did it. Esco did it for me. I mean, to be quite honest, like I've actually learned more from Esco informally, just with the mentoring that we've had in the past 5 years, than I think arguably that I learned through my PhD. Like not the hard science like physiology, but there's a lot of professional mentoring that goes on outside of the traditional roles that you would expect that he certainly didn't have to do, right? That was something that he chose to do. And I think it's benefited the department. I think it's benefited us professionally. I think we've probably published more together because of that relationship than certainly any other. I'm just guessing right now, but certainly anybody else in the department, like more co-authored publications between the two of us since I've got here than anybody else. And I think that's somewhat unique in a sense.
Yeah. And to that, though, I mean, you're right. It is a relationship. You've certainly mentored me as much or more than I've mentored you. But that's the good thing about this profession is it's an exciting profession, and people that really want to make a career out of it are more than willing to work with other people and mentor them. I mean, I will go in to my gym tomorrow and see a personal trainer that's there, or whatever fitness professional, or the manager of the place, working with somebody else, mentoring them through it. And that's what we do. We mentor people. We teach people, you know, whether it be in the realm of fitness and understanding an exercise program. And through that, we maybe develop the competence to work with them professionally, you know, and that's really cool.
Energy is so contagious. I mean, energy is just so contagious. If somebody sees you shining, they're going to want to be around you. And so I think that's where the mentoring, you know, comes in too. Like,
so I worked at 3 different universities, and every one of those, I've had numerous people come from other departments talking about how positive kinesiology or exercise science is. And, you know, y'all work so well together. And I don't know, you know, fitness, we're healthy, we're fit, we love what we do, and we want others to join into that. Yeah,
preach it. Go get moving. Eat broccoli. It's great.
Yep.
But so the thing is that the fitness world is not the only place where being a professional needs to be improved. Research is also, and all 3 of us are in research, and we've seen it. And it's funny, I had to dust off this book, and Esco, Fedewa, you commented on it. It's the Don't Be Such a Scientist book.
That's my jam.
I love it. And I forgot I had it, and I was writing this, and I just went back, and we won't get into too much detail with the 5 main things that they talked about, but just to go back over it, they were encouraging scientists to not be such scientists, because we're a certain breed of people. And I do want to say an aside, I think exercise physiologists are a little bit different. Exercise physiologist researchers are like a little different breed of researchers, but like you said, it's an energy thing. But in this book, they said that scientists have to not be so cerebral, because they can be oftentimes all in their head. They think too much. They don't have as much emotion. They said scientists shouldn't be so literal minded, which is self-explanatory. They should be better storytellers. And I think you both have probably been to presentations where the storytelling was awful, because they are so cerebral. They can't put a little spin on it and try to really tell a story. And they said researchers or scientists shouldn't be, or should be more likable and should be less unlikable. Just the approachability of you. I think we can, as researchers, sometimes act a little bit high and mighty and stiff.
Mm-hmm.
And then they said that scientists should be the voice of science. So we should be better communicators of what we're doing. And that's oftentimes where our profession is lost. So we do the research, but we don't get it out. And we'll talk a lot about that today. Esco, have you read that book?
I haven't read the book, no, but I'm just like you said. I mean, there's a lot of truth that, within that.
Well, I mean, actually, like those 5 things, I mean, I can tell you just in the past few months, the experience that we've had transitioning from the lab with, you know, we kind of mentioned it in one of the earlier episodes with the app, but making the transition from the lab into the real world. I think that when we first started our pitch deck, so for those of you guys, like, you started a business, you do a pitch deck for investors, and, you know, you kind of try to market your stuff. When we first did our pitch deck, it was so bad. It was absolutely awful. It was so science and p-values and correlations, and it was like we took it to the real world, and nobody had a clue what we were talking about, and honestly, nobody cared, right? Because there wasn't this hook that drew people in. And so I think that, you know, over the past few months, we have had to learn how to not dumb the science down, because people aren't dumb, but we had to learn how to stop talking like scientists and actually say, like, hey, we developed this app. It's way simpler than anything you've done before, and we can measure how much muscle you have from a picture. Done. On the smartphone that you already have, right? And so that becomes like such a simpler message than we developed, and we have a patent on a photographic 2D image recognition software program. You know what I mean? Like, what are you talking about? No one even I don't even understand what that means anymore. And I think, you know, we've learned that. The other part, the 5th one that you mentioned, be the voice of science. we reluctantly joined social media. Esco is still personally not on Instagram. We have begged him to get on social media and he's still not. But it's one of those things where we realized if no one is going to speak up for science, then it has to be us, right? Because a lot of people, we've mentioned misinformation, we've mentioned like hot, fad diets, we've mentioned like hot topics and hot exercise trends that might not give you the results that you were promised. Like there's a lot of misleading stuff out there. And if you're not going to advocate for your science, then who is? And so we reluctantly got on social media. And I think if you look at some of the posts from the page, it's mostly distilling research articles down into very easily understandable tidbits, which has been an art that we learned how to do also. How to simplify the data of, from this 15-page 20-page research study down into 2 bullet points that somebody can really easily spout off and remember. And I think if you are not going to do that, then somebody else will take your spot on social media or at the gym, and they will be the voice for something that you may not completely agree with. So I think it's your duty to be there, even if you don't want to be.
Yeah, and I think you're right about that. I think it's so easy for us to complain about when people take advantage of science and they slander the message of studies or research products and projects and stuff. And it's so easy to complain about that but if you're not doing your part in doing that translation or the outreach things that you need to do, the activities that you need to, like you said, diluting it down so that people can understand, then I mean, honestly, you have no right to complain. Like if you're not doing your part in trying to make this science translation a little bit better.
I fought it so hard. Like I remember like when I was in my PhD in the first couple of years when I was at UA, like I remember sitting back and saying, I'm not going to get on social media because I'm a real scientist and I want to live in the lab and just do my research.
Yeah.
And the problem with that is that if you just live in the lab and do your research, then nobody is going to hear about your research. And then like if it doesn't leave the lab, no one will care about it. And pseudoscience and misinformation will be the only thing that's out there. And so again, we viewed it again as kind of a service. Like it's almost our duty to protect the integrity of solid research-based, evidence-based practice.
Yeah.
And I'm glad
media.
you brought up, sorry, Esco. I'm glad you brought up service too, because I feel like a big part of this issue is that when you look at academic service, your superiors are wanting you to do things like be on committees and anything that's related to academia. And so if you put something like outreach-based things, like let's say you're going to talk to a group of high schoolers about exercise or something like that, that might not be considered something that would boost the quality of your CV. And so whether you're doing things like social media outreach, which is not the only route of outreach, you can do speaking engagements, you can do anything that you want to get your message out, your scientific message out. I feel like in academia, you guys probably know more about this, but I feel like academia doesn't value that as part of the package that's going to get you to tenure track or anything else, which is crazy, because if we're not doing research for the people that we're doing research on, what are we doing research for? We're doing research in that case then for money to be brought into our university and for our name to be glorified, not to actually help people.
Imagine I'm on the faculty issues committee at UA. Imagine if somebody came to me and asked, hey, Mike, we have a faculty issues committee meeting on Tuesday. You're going to be there? And I said, nah, man, I can't. I'm on the ground. I'm on social media. I got a podcast I got to prep for. I can't make it to that meeting. Like that would be completely ridiculous. And so I think you're right. Like there's different types of service. Like Esco and I have gone and talked to community centers, and we've met with high school coaches and things like that. And those are also, forms of service. We're trying to make the field better and offer the expertise we have for little to no reward. And, sometimes I don't feel like that type of service is necessarily valued as much.
Yeah. I mean, it's the third arm of academics, right? Service, teaching, and research. And one thing that I'm grateful for to be and housed within the College of Education is that we're surrounded by teachers. You know, and at the end of the day, they know how to teach. They know how to communicate to people, right? And that's important. That's something that we learn to do. You know, and as a scientist, it's very important to be able to communicate what it is that you're doing in the lab. I've got a friend of mine. He has an endocrinologist at UA, and he has a little clip on his wall in his lab that says something like that: if you can't explain your research to your neighbor, then you don't know your research.
Yeah.
That's pretty much what it is. You have to be able to communicate it, right? And that's something that we're not taught as PhDs, as scientists, for the most of us, unless we're in the field of education. You know, but if you're in a hard science, you're not taught how to teach. You got to learn how to do that on your own. And, you know, you learn by doing.
Yeah, you definitely learn by doing. I've had to do that this entire brand that I'm trying to develop, which is basically getting out what research says about exercise and nutrition.
Yeah, I mean, that's what Fedew and I are trying to do. We learn by it. When we started this whole process as entrepreneurs, we weren't taught we're not business professionals. We just jumped right in, and we're learning as we go along, trying to figure it all out.
Yeah. It is so hard though, because like circling back to what we were just talking about, sometimes you're seen as like a failure if you step away from academia. So for me in my personal journey, I know when I was on my PhD, I was a little burnout. I put in a lot of hours. I'm sure everybody does for the PhD, but when I got to my postdoc, I basically made a promise to myself. I was like, and this is probably so wrong, and I'm probably never going to get an academic job, so don't tell anybody this.
You will never leave this podcast.
Okay. Go into the world. But I promised myself that I would never again work past what I felt like I was getting financially compensated for. And I'm not all about money. I don't care about that. But I didn't want again to put in the hours that I did before and have my health, my mental, my emotional all jacked up. And so I got to my postdoc. I had that in mind, and I did my 40 hours per week. And then that's when I started to develop this brand. And I think that because of my social media presence and because of the people that I work with, being friends with on social media, and just the exposure of it all, I started getting the questions and the little comments that I would hear. Like, I heard that one of the other professors in my department said something like, when I was a postdoc, I was spending my weekends in the lab, and just all this little chatter and stuff, because you are seen as a failure if you don't put 110%, so to speak. You're seen as a failure, so to speak, if you don't put in 110% to your academic career. And in my head, I'm like, then, I mean, I don't want to be an academic if that's the case. I never want to be an academic if that's
Tell that to my 10-year-old beautiful little girl and my wonderful 7-year-old little boy and my beautiful wife. You can't do that. If that's what you want to be, that's all you will be. And that's not life, right?
Tell
them, Esco.
Yeah.
Preach. Actually, and I think it's some of that is departmental culture. I mean, I don't think emotionally and physically I've been more unhealthy than when I was doing my PhD in health and exercise physiology. Like, I really feel like toward the tail end of that dissertation, things were getting a little rough.
I don't want my PhD.
Right.
That, you know, I mean,
yeah. When we started here, our department chair in kind of the culture that we've, you know, developed is always been that it's a zero-sum game. Like, at the end of the day, our department chair has always told us there's 24 hours. You can spend them doing really whatever you want to, but recognize that if you do dedicate all of your time to research, your teaching will suffer and your family will suffer. And if you dedicate if you spend time with family, it's completely fine, right? Because we all have families and friends and social lives outside of work. But if you choose to dedicate more time, you know, to those areas, that's going to impact the amount of time that you have for teaching and research and service. And, you know, at the end of the day, you just have to be comfortable and confident with the decisions that you made. I mean, we've talked to the past 10 months, obviously with COVID, everybody has dealt with more than, you know, the rest of the world will ever know. But, you know, we really had to shift in our family the perspective that we had, you know, the time that we have home with our family now and with the kids. Like, we're never going to get this time again. And so my wife and I kind of had to step back over the past 10 months and just say, like, look, our research in the past year has probably taken a downturn. I think, our teaching, we were all adjusting to doing online learning and things like that, but that did grant us a lot of freedom. And so, we just chose to allocate those 24 hours somewhere else. And I think that was the culture. Our department chair, kind of instilled that within us. We've kind of instilled it in the new folks that have come in. Like, we kind of train them up and say, like, look, this is how it goes here. I don't work on the weekends, right? Like, we come in and grind during the week, and we go really, really hard at work, and we bust it from 9 to 5. And then, sometimes after work we go and we do stuff socially, but that's kind of the work culture that we had. And I think all of us here kind of agreed, like, that was how we kind of wanted to get down. And so we have, and I think that was a decision that we each individually made and then kind of collectively came to as a group. It was just culture by the end,
Yeah. And I think that's a really great point, culture. And when I think about if and when I get to your point where, on the tenure track type of thing, I feel like if I were to create a research lab, my research lab would put in work Monday to Thursday, maybe Monday through Friday at like 11:59 a.m. And then at noon, we might go socialize and grab some beers and maybe talk about research, do like a little journal club or something like that. But it's all about culture at the end of the day, because I mean, if you're putting in your work in the time that you have to work, basically what I'm saying is if you're efficient, then that means that you're going to get done a lot of stuff. So I think a big part of the problem with working outside of the boundaries of actual work time is that we aren't efficient. So maybe your phone is on, you're answering all kinds of emails, you're doing all of this stuff. And so work efficiency needs to be improved, or you're talking too much with your partner. Fedewa and Esco. But
actually, since we did have our offices next door to each other at work, we got way more work done when we were not at work. That is absolutely a true story.
Work efficiency. So how do you guys improve your efficiency at work to be a better researcher? Or
Well, I think
guess
actually
now at home.
you hit it. I mean, you hit it. You really have to carve out time. I mean, I think it's so easy. I don't know how some people do it with TV on and music on and their phones on and like their instant messenger is dinging and their email is dinging. Like, there's absolutely no way that you can concentrate. So, I mean, to really carve out that time, when you're analyzing data, if you really want to dive in and just kind of immerse yourself and try to figure out these really hard, statistical problems, these issues that you're trying to wrestle with for research, you got to kind of shut it all out, and really focus on that one thing. And in a sense, like, that gives you more valuable, like, research time. And when you're home, shut the email off and you can have more valuable home time. I mean, Esco, we were supposed to do something tomorrow, I think. And it's like the one night of the week where he has with his wife. And I was like, hey man, Thursday night, we are going to do, like, we got that meeting, right? And he goes, actually, Thursday is just not going to work, right? Because that's the one, like, that's our sacred time at home. And like, how cool is that, right? Like, how much respect, you just kind of shut it all out. And that way, the time that you have with at home, with family, with friends, social life and stuff like that, that becomes more valuable. It's protected and it's almost sacred, right? Nobody's messing with you during that time. So you're not distracted. And we do the same thing at work. I got to shut him out sometimes. Like, I shut my door. I say, Esco, you just got to leave, man. Like, I'm in here working, but no, you cannot disturb me.
He's a problem.
I just lean on him. He does all the work and I just coast along. So, no, I mean, you become more efficient too by doing, I remember the first time it took me forever to write a method section of a paper. That's what my professor assigned me to do. And that took me so long. And, it was grueling to sit there in front of a computer to try to write the method section. And it's simple. Method section is the easiest thing to write on the paper for the most part, right? And now, after doing, working with, writing papers for a while, it's much more efficient than it was before. And that's what students need to realize too early on. It's like, it does become, the process does become easier.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Practice makes perfect, kind of. Because you can never be perfect. Because as a researcher, the more you know, the more you don't know. Because the more you question yourself. It's the curse.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, we learned a whole lot of how to be a better professional, and I think especially as a researcher, at least for me, the outreach thing is the biggest thing lack that I see, but you guys have done a really good job with outreach because you've literally created an application that you can use on your phone. And the entire premise is coming from the research that you guys have done. And I know we talked about in previous podcasts, but can you give like a little elevator pitch to your cool, amazing app?
Yeah, absolutely. So we developed a smartphone app that can measure muscle and fat from a single picture. We've moved what we have in the research lab to your phone that you already probably have in your pocket, and you're probably listening to this podcast right now with.
Yeah,
It's accurate and it's simple.
that's it. Snap a picture, get your body composition, and that's it. I mean, and it's based on research, tons of research that you guys have done. So you've
Validate,
taken
yeah.
it from research lab to practice. And that's
Yeah.
what researchers need to get better at. And so uh, we're not going to belabor that point because it is on previous podcasts, but I'm going to put the information for the app in the show notes. But before we sign off, I have two questions.
Oh, here we
First,
go.
first, if there was one thing you could say to a junior scientist today to make them a better scientist, what would it be? Just one thing.
Esco, you go first. You got to give me a second.
Stick with your passion.
Mm.
Don't
That's good,
change
actually.
that. Yeah.
That was a good job, man. Way to go. Yeah, stick with your passion.
Thanks.
I'll piggyback off of that and say the best advice that I can give to a junior faculty that's starting out is don't try to do this all on yourself, like on your own. You can't. There's no way that you can do this all by yourself. And so if that means building a research team to insulate you, then you build the research team around you to insulate the weaknesses that you have. I mean, so like right now, our main areas are body composition research. That's really all that I want to do right now, right? If we're doing an intervention, like I actually kind of want a dietitian, nutrition faculty to come in and run the dietary tracking and run the meal plans and stuff like that. If we're doing training, like I kind of want somebody else to come in and for the most part, like handle that aspect. I really just want to do this one job. And so find what you want to do and partner with people that want to take on the other responsibilities and build around the weaknesses that you have.
Both of those just spoke to my soul.
Right.
Because I feel like in my postdoc, I got a little bit away from my passion and I felt it, like felt the effects. And now I'm starting to get back into it with exercise dosing and weight training and things like that. And because I was plagued with the whole, I work in a, like, what would you call it? A legitimate research building where they do like really cool stuff. I can't even pronounce half the words. But a lot of the times I feel like they don't take exercise science and research seriously. And so I got away from my passion. Now I'm getting back to it. And so that spoke to my soul, Esco.
Good.
But I also love Fedewa, what you said too, because for instance, for me, I suck at stats. I always have. And I don't
That's
even
the
like
one
it.
thing that I'm good at. That's how I make myself valuable on every team. I don't have any other skills.
Listen, so you're going to come on my team. That's what's happening. You're gonna
Done.
collaborate with me. I could throw statistics out the window and I'd be good with it. But having a good collaboration makes an entire research team. I mean, if you have somebody that just plays to the weaknesses that you have, like you said, Fedewa, it's great. So I love that advice.
I think it's a comfort level too. I mean, like I said, I always want to be surrounded by smarter people than me, and I want to be the dumbest person in the room. And so what that means is that, you have to be confident enough to just acknowledge the skills that you don't have. And so for me, I would like to do the body composition stuff and I want to do the stats stuff. How arrogant of me to think that I could design a better, dietary intervention than a dietitian, right? Like
Yeah.
how arrogant to think that I'm more qualified to do that or can do it better than somebody, And so, in a sense, like humbly, I think that you're probably better at this than me. Right. So I would like to do this part and then you can do that part. And together, like the project, when we're not all scrambling, trying to keep these plates spinning alone, the project will probably be better because of it.
Yeah. Yeah. That's awesome. So the last question is the question that I forgot to ask in the first two, which is what I'm trying to ask with all my podcasts, because the podcast name is Bent by Knowledge, and it means behavioral change in exercise, nutrition, and thought processes by knowledge and research and Bible. And this part of the podcast is, of course, in the research part of it. And so I want to ask all my interviewees or people that I'm interviewing what you prefer to get bent by. So like, how do you get bent by knowledge?
Go ahead, Esco.
So like for me, I honestly like YouTube. I love YouTube. And I think there's legitimate sources out there.
Yeah, wow. I mean, how can knowledge not bend you, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's what it does. And that's what it's supposed to do. I mean, I guess knowledge, the way that, oh man, yeah. The more knowledge the more knowledge I obtain, the more I realize I have to learn.
Yeah.
You know,
The more you know, the more you don't know.
Yeah, and that's there's a lot of truth to that, and that's wow.
And where do you get
that for sure?
Where do you get most of your knowledge?
Where do I get most of my knowledge?
Yeah. I think that's what I was trying to ask, but I need to be better at presenting it.
Wow. Where do I get most of my knowledge? Certainly from other people, right? Whether it be from other researchers, reading their papers, reading the studies that came from their research, from my students, that I work with, right? From just the others that are around me, and from trying to better my own, my own knowledge base, my own field of work, right? So just the pursuit of knowledge.
There you go.
I threw him under the bus on that one. I definitely made him go first so that I could think of an answer for that. Yeah. So I will fess up.
2 times in a row. 2 times in a row.
I did. I stuck it twice in a row.
So good on the first one. I didn't do too good on that one.
That's one of the great things about our working relationship is that it's going to be, he's probably going to stick me with it next time too, because he knows that it's coming now. So, I think I'm actually a podcast junkie. I love podcasts. Like I have podcasts on all the time, and podcasts from different areas. Like I just feel like, I learn so well by listening to people, and sometimes that knowledge comes from areas outside of our own field. It feels like I always have a podcast on. Like I do dishes, like I'm listening to a podcast. Like after the kids go to bed, I'm cleaning the kitchen. Podcast is on. Like it's just always kind of like it's just noise, kind of in the background while I'm doing kind of the day-to-day stuff, driving to work, things like that. I think that I've learned so much from listening to podcasts outside of our area. You just listen to how people talk. You listen to how people interact. Like you can hear and pick up traits of active listeners and how to come back with questions. Like when you were interviewing and being interviewed, like you just kind of learn all of this stuff by being exposed to it. And honestly, like now I think that, we're so interested in the social media world, the podcasting world, like, the outreach to folks outside of kind of the world of academia and the ivory tower of research, if you will. Like I think your page, your podcast, I think that's fantastic. One of the people that I really like to give a shameless plug, not to somebody who we're even remotely affiliated with, but the Exercise Doc on Instagram. Like she has a podcast, Rachel Reed. We went to school together at Georgia. She took a weird kind of non-academic route. And so like, I've got to kind of watch her go from PhD to postdoc to taking a job in industry with Pure Barre to Orange Theory. And now she's kind of branching out into social media and kind of making a presence there. And she started a podcast with a friend. And so, I mean, it's been so cool to watch and to learn other professionals who are kind of taking the same road that you and I and Esco have that are doing it and doing it better than us. Like I just feel like it's so cool to watch that and just soak it all up. So I think I learned most of that stuff from podcasts. I mean, I really do. They're just so much fun. It's instant access to everyone's kind of like almost a free, like free flowing thought, train. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, agree with that. Love a good podcast for sure. Well, I really liked having you guys on. Of course, so much good knowledge, and I appreciate getting bent by knowledge by you guys. And definitely hope to keep this conversation going a little bit more and look forward to future collaborations.
Absolutely. Now this has just opened the door for like a world of future collaborations. This is fantastic. This doesn't stop with a podcast. This goes on.
Yes.
Definitely.
All right.
And we look forward to working with you.
All right. Well, you guys have a great night, and we'll talk to you later.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much. We appreciate it.
Hey guys, I am so excited for my new book entitled Through His Strength by Improving Ours, Family, to be released on February 4th. This book has been strategically designed to educate parents and caretakers on what the Bible and research have to say about exercise and nutrition. And then after they soak in all that good information, they will rally the family troops and complete discussion questions and fun practical application activities. To learn more about my new book, visit my website at www.drbrittanyRallman.com. That's www.drbrittanyRallman.com.